Yeah, it's Saturday in the park. It's another Saturday, and that's some Chicago for you right there. I'm Ralph Williams. It's the External Bum Show. We're here every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. with my guest, Scott Morganroth, our guest today. Special guest is Robert Butler from the Sports Scope podcast.
We'll get it figured out.
There we go. Pushing the wrong button there. There we go. All right, I didn't eat my Wheaties yet this morning, so that's what's going on.
Oh, good comeback.
Yeah, so there you go. That's it. All right, we're waiting for Leo Haggerty to join us. Robert, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're up to.
Oh, well, I'm a medical carrier by day. I do a live stream show by night. And yes, there is a podcast afterwards, but it is a live stream show. Talk national sports, mainly NFL, NBA, college football, anything that's really big, market to a national audience. But I will cover here in the Nashville area since I'm located here. So that's pretty much in a nutshell. I've been doing it 7 years.
All right. Scott Morganroth, South Florida Tribune. I know you had a long ride home last night, Scott, but how are you and how's everything with you?
Well, no, last night it was a flight. The day before it was
a flight. Okay.
There you go. All right. I was chipper enough to get on this show with you guys. Hey, Leo, looking forward to having you back on my network soon. I just been a whirlwind being king of the road. And Robert, it's a pleasure to meet you. But I'm all about this thing. It's called a book, Lessons from the Microphone. My goodness. 44 years into business. And I have a photo of myself and Muhammad Ali. Of course, I didn't have the gray hair. I didn't have as much weight as well. But, I'm the owner of the South Florida Tribune, and our YouTube channel, South Florida Tribune YouTube channel, has a lot of my great shows. So, Robert, you should check it out and subscribe, because then you'll find out what I can do to offer your platform as well as everybody else in the audience. But it's been a whirlwind, but I was determined to get my butt on this show, and look what we got. We got a grand slam of a team between Robert, Leo. Well, I don't know about me, but I know Williams is the host of this bad boy. So, but I don't know, king of the road, you name it, man. But this 44 years. And that's why the gray hair is really, it's evidently known. And this guy got one too. You can get it on Amazon Kindle as well, and Barnes & Noble. So I put a lot of work in, and there will be a part 2 that I'll be working on at the end of the year. So the stories I didn't get in on the first round will be on the second. And I have a lot of stuff that I'm using 2024 to add more data to what's about to be Lessons from the Microphone Part 2, tuning into the enduring wisdom of visionary leaders, many of who met, or maybe you didn't, but you still learn from everybody.
All right. Also, Leo Haggerty has just joined us. Leo, start out. How are you? And tell us a little bit about yourself.
I want to direct things to Scott. Scott, if I were you, you can name the book, Lessons from the Microphone Extra in.
Really?
2. Then you go to part 3, which is going to be Lessons from the Microphone Sudden Death. But I tell you what, you got all sorts of things you can play with there. But you know what, guys? I'm going to become the road warrior come June 22nd. I start my football camps. I'm going to be up at Drew University in New Jersey, and then out to Pacific Lutheran in Tacoma, Washington, and then up to Massachusetts, Dartmouth, up right on, pretty much right next to the hook there in Massachusetts. And I'm out there for pretty much the entire 30 days from June 22nd to July 22nd. So, and I've been doing it for 20 years. I'm not complaining, I'm stating fact, but I'll tell you what, guys, it is a pleasure to be on with the triumvirate of Ralph, him, and Scott. Guys, it's my pleasure.
And Robert Butler, our special guest today, is Leo Haggerty from Amped Up Sports, and Robert does a show called Sports Scope in Nashville, Tennessee. Covers the Titans, and I've been on his program, and he's been on mine, and now he's here again. So there we are.
And guess what? Robert's going to be on mine. Where there's a will, there's a way. Leo's already been on. And, Leo was so surprised at the pace of how quickly it went. And, Robert, when I get done with you, There'll be an awful lot of Nashville sound on that. It'll be you and I and whoever else we put on that as well. And I haven't even finished a full bottle of my gasoline.
There you go.
I'm getting started here already. Seriously.
Got the Catman there.
That's it,
All right.
man.
Okay, guys, let's get started with our bum segment here. Brought to you in part by Scott's book, and it's the tuning into the enduring wisdom of visionary leaders, lessons from the microphone. There it is. I have a copy, and Scott's book is the sponsor for this segment. All right, my bum today is Avocado Marcano, former Pittsburgh Pirate, just got busted gambling. I think he's my bum today because I think that that was a bum move that he did, gambling. He's a young guy. He was playing for the San Diego Padres. We had just traded him, and and so now, he got caught gambling. Could be banned for life from the Major League Baseball. Probably will, just like Pete Rose. We're going to talk. That'll be our next topic coming up right after the bum segment. Okay, Scott, we'll start with you. Or I'm sorry, Robert, you're our guest. Who's your bum for today?
I don't know. I mean, maybe Jonte Porter. He did the same thing. That's the brother of Michael Porter Jr. He's got caught in some gambling issues prior. There's more to that story coming out. It sounds like something out of a movie. You can't really make this stuff up. I think these guys don't see that they're young, and they don't see the big picture at 22, 23, 24. They don't think long game. They think now game. And it's really unfortunate, but I'll have to just go with that, and kind of like your guy, unfortunately.
Oh yeah, yeah. All right, Scott, you're next.
You know what? I normally don't do this, and I hope it's the only time I ever have to do this. Okay, but before I went out of town, we had a great baseball show, 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. I really take a lot of pride in it. We do it on Monday, but there was a guy who came on in the chat room that I know who's a friend of a friend, and I've gotten to know the guy, but he made the biggest mistake in the chat room that you could ever make. And this will appear in Lessons from the Microphone Part 2. And I won't mention the name because I don't know if he's listening, so I don't want to go out there and get called for any potential backlash. But he had the gall, because in this particular show, we had MLB, which I love doing, and we had hockey because we wanted to get the Stanley Cup in. But we kept telling him hockey will be toward the back end as well as his other two guys in there. And he had the gall in the chat room to mention, because when I run a show, obviously Leo and Ralph know that I'm very nuts and bolts and I do it a certain way. Ultimately, we get. But to make the mention communist dictator. Communist dictator. Can you believe that? This guy. And now he said he was joking around it. So what I did is I absolutely hammered him in the chat, and my co-hosts on that show weren't happy with him. You can do an awful lot of things. You can joke around, but there are two words in this society you do not use, okay, other than expletives. Communist dictator. We all know what communist dictator means because all you have to do is go back to World War II, right?
Yeah.
And if that isn't good enough, why don't we go right down the road to Havana, Cuba, and we can talk about it there. I can, back in the older days, when I went out there, was on regular radio. And Robert, just so you know, I started at ABC Radio, WXYZ in Detroit. And if you ever made a comment that's stupid, you get vaporized, take the button, you're done. You remember how FCC is? They're really, really strict with that kind of stuff. That would have happened, but I called him out, and I'll tell you what, the backlash towards this guy, he hasn't been anywhere near the chat room since then, but it's a lesson everybody should know. You don't tolerate anything like that, whether it's in the chat room or not. There's certain things you can say and certain things you don't, and this is a really big don't. So I won't mention the person's name to protect my own self from any legalities, but he's an individual who's 30, and he did write me an apology through a text message too, but that's not good enough when you use those type of words. So that's my bum. I'll stick to more sports, but I think this is a message that should be sent on Ralph's national audience that there's certain things you do and certain things you don't. This guy, he'll be lucky. I'll be hard pressed to see if he ever goes out there and wants to come on. And the shame of the matter is, I'm about to launch a young female who I think is going to be an upcoming star in the next 2, 3, 4 weeks. And he likes to see her on there. Maybe he's still subscribed to my YouTube channel, but you know what? Certain things you do, and there's do's and don'ts. And this guy classified as a bum/don't. A little bit
All right.
long, but it needed to be said.
All right, Scott. Leo, your bum for today.
Well, I got a plethora of bums here, guys, and it's all with the WNBA. And let's start with what's actually going on. And I said the other day on radio that the WNBA owners need to sit down and tell their players, hey, look, you may not like Caitlin Clark. You may not like what she has brought to the game, but I'll tell you what, the only reason people are watching you is because of Caitlin Clark.
Mm-hmm.
When they had her on and they played Chicago, the place was packed. Next week when Chicago played, you thought you were at a CYO game. It was terrible. Nobody was there. And stop whining about the hard fouls. Here's the funny thing. The WNBA now is what the NBA was back in the 60s and 70s. I mean, if all these guys went to the basket back then, Chamberlain, Russell, Nate Thurman, they put them in the third row and the referee would look at him and say, I'm not calling anything. You're dumb enough to go in there, pay the price. So that's just the way the NBA was now. And again, I hear these people talk about, well, back then they were a bunch of plumbers. How about if you played by the rules they played back then? How about if you played by, okay, there is no palming. There is no walking. There is no Euro step, which is a travel.
Yeah.
By the rules. So you know what? It's hard to watch the NBA now because there are no rules, but I'm watching the WNBA, and they need to get this under control, because if they don't, this league is going to go away. Because if you drive Caitlin Clark out, you're driving everybody away from eyeballs from the TV.
Oh yeah,
The
absolutely.
30 points she had last night, though, Lee. She stuck it right back in their face.
There you
Hey,
go.
Leo, you've had a lot of bums on here before, but I'm going to tell you, my brother, this is the best one you've ever come up with. But the only thing you left out of it was what would have happened in the Bad Boys era. What about Rick Mahorn?
80s.
What about Bill Lambier? You forgot the 80s, Haggerty. What's wrong?
Yeah,
But
80s.
the good news is, Leo, I got some good news for you, okay? You're iconic in Detroit. You really are, whether you know it or not. And I'm going to put this out there for the whole national audience to know. I drive on a road when I go back to Metro Detroit called Haggerty Road. And other than the stupid traffic it is, you still are legendary back home in Detroit. Haggerty Road!
I'd love to say, Scott, that this is a relative, but Haggerty Automotive, and I mean, when I was going out from Chicago to Detroit to do the University of Michigan's basketball camp, when Steve Fisher and a good friend of mine, Brian Dutcher, I used to go by the road there, and there was Haggerty Auto. I go, hey, maybe it's a relative.
Oh, give me a break, man. Auto places can go out of business all day long, but roads stay forever. They do. Can come and go. And you're talking about a guy who's king of the road weary, anything but. Haggerty Road is where it's at, and you're iconic there, man. And by the way, I should also make your point a little bit more here, is what happened when Larry Bird and Magic entered and how everything changed everything around, right? And all of a sudden you got this young lady who, in my opinion, is making as big of an impact as them. But your point was you talk about a point, Haggerty, of all the ones. This was bullseye, brother.
Robert, I got to ask you this question. What's it going to be like to cover the Titans without Mike Rabel there dropping the F-bomb every other
see, Mike, here's the deal.
I miss Mike Rabel.
If you bring me on, you're getting all this energy bottled up here, so I guarantee you, I'll give your viewers plenty to think about. You don't have to, listeners, no matter. We'll bring on the energy, and I'll even have more sleep.
Yeah. Well, they've got an offensive-minded head coach in Callahan, and they made some tremendous upgrades. We'll see what happens. I mean, they've had a really good offseason on paper. The game's not played on paper, but everything that I would have asked them to done if I were running things, and I'm just a regular guy like you all, they've done. So it's hard for me to complain. Now, when the games start, and if Levis' timing's off, that's a Levis problem. It's not going to be a Titans problem. I'll tell you that. They've done a lot of good things to the line, to the receiving core, to the defensive backfield, defensive line, coaching, offensive line coaching. You know, Bill Callahan's their offensive line coach.
Right.
You know, from Cleveland. So it's if you're managing somebody, they've done everything you've asked them.
Well, Bill Callahan's a heck of a coach. He really is. He's been
Yeah.
around for a long time. So they have one Callahan. He brings in his dad. I think that's a great move.
Yeah,
That's a good
yeah. Well, be like Brunson and his dad, and for the Knicks, you know, have a good dad-son connection. He can help him out with some things.
Right.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm going to throw this out while Ralph's getting everything ready. I put this out yesterday. If I'm the Portland Trailblazers, if I'm Houston, if I'm Golden State, when I get to pick, I'm calling the Lakers. And I'm saying, we're picking Bronny. What are you going to do? And I would tell you, hey, here's what it's going to take for us not to take Bronny. You're number one this year, you're number one next year, and a player.
That's smart.
You know what? If Bronny ends up with the Houston Rockets, guess where LeBron's going to end up?
Houston Rockets.
Yeah, they are holding the Lakers hostage. Now, I'm wondering if Adam Silver hasn't told the teams that picked before the Lakers, Bronny's off limits. And if he did that, shame on the NBA. Shame.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Okay, speaking of the NBA, we'll talk about them later. The playoffs. Bobby Hurley is the new coach at in LA for the Lakers. I'm not much of an NBA fan, but I do like Bobby Hurley.
I think it's
So
Danny Hurley.
Dan
isn't it?
Hurley. Dan Hurley. The
or
brother.
Dan, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, that's okay.
Jeez.
Just want to
And
make
it's
sure
not
know.
it's not official yet, I don't think.
No,
I don't think it
no,
was
but
either. I think they were in negotiations for it, right?
Nick-
Yeah.
Things are
right.
getting interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so we're going to see where Danny Hurley goes with this team. You know, I'm happy to see. I've been a Celtics fan forever. It's great to see them in the playoffs again, or in the finals against the Dallas Mavericks. Mark Cuban team. As you know, he's the owner of the Mavericks. And he's also from Pittsburgh here. But let's get started with this segment since we're talking about it right now. The NBA brought to you by Sleep Pittsburgh 412-462-7858. Sleep Pittsburgh for the best sleep tonight, best inventory, best prices. They have mattresses, futons, day beds, much, much more. Also, don't forget about their no credit check financing. Can you guys hear me okay? I had to take my headset off because I had to make some changes here. So
Hey, by the way, Ralph, just to give you some information, correct me if I'm wrong, Leo. I think that the Mavericks were sold to Adelson out in
Yes.
Vegas, and,
Okay.
and they have another owner as well. But Mark Cuban is still heavily involved in there, and he's the one that pulled off that move to get Kyrie over there. I just want to set the record straight.
Oh, well, that's
Yeah.
cool. That's good. Yeah. Like I said, Scott, I'm not much of an NBA fan. You guys know more about it than I do.
Well, you know
But
what?
when it comes
Nobody
to the
has to be
finals, I get into it.
I'll be an NBA fan when David Stern is the commissioner again, but there's only one little problem. He's dead.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
All right. Your
Covered
thoughts
it
on the
when it was
playoffs,
good.
guys? We'll start with you, Leo,
Well, I'm not
in the
surprised
finals.
who's in. Boston was the class of the East all year. And, you know, the cream has come to the top and it stayed there. Now, with that being said, I like what's going on in Dallas.
Right.
Kyrie has become the wise sage of the team. He's kind of backed away and let Luka lead on the court, but Kyrie's running that locker room. And Luka's happy about that. So they got a great chemistry going. I wasn't surprised with that first game outcome because, hey, the Celtics had a break. They were rested. And when Bill Walton died, trust me, the Celtics weren't going to lose game one when they were doing a tribute to Bill Walton. No, not happening. Not a chance. So, yeah, they were playing on a lot of emotion and they got a lot of talent. Let's see what happens game two, because that's going to be probably the bellwether of what happens. If they go back to Dallas 1-1, yeah, okay, advantage Dallas. But I've always said the series doesn't begin until the visiting team wins a game because teams are supposed to win. So, yeah, And hopefully this will be fun to watch because you got two offensive juggernauts here.
Oh yeah, Robert, go ahead. You're next.
I tell you what, guys, it's a really good series. I thought that I picked Dallas to win. They just look to be playing the better basketball. I know that the Celtics are favored. Can Porzingis play at that level every game? Is the calf injury going to re-aggravate at some point? Love to see the Celtics win this thing. I think it'd be great for the league. Following Danny Ainge for a long time, but they've shown a lot of inconsistencies. You look at the fact that they've had so many breaks in this playoffs with injuries to every team that they played leading up to the finals. So you're right, Lil. Game 2 will be telling. I doubt if it's going to be a 25-point blowout. The last 2 times they were blown out, Dallas they came back and won the series. In round 1 and round 2, they were blown out in game 1, both series, and came back and won. But if Boston can play half as good as they did on Thursday night, I'd give them the edge for the series. But it's just one game, and somebody's got to win at the other team's stadium, arena or whatnot, not unless Boston can win at home all the way. But they're barely above 500 at home during the playoffs over the last 4 years. So we'll see. It's interesting.
All right, Scott.
There's a lot of different ways to go with this. Number one, did you guys realize that the Lakers and the Celtics are tied at 17-17 for the amount of championships that they won? Don't you think Boston would like to go ahead and 18-17 this whole thing? Number one. Number two, okay, I didn't like the Kyrie Irving that played in Brooklyn. I didn't like the Kyrie Irving that played everywhere else and ran himself out of the market. But all of a sudden, what you have, when the guy isn't taking games off for every reason on the planet, and he decides, maybe this basketball thing is pretty fun after a while. Okay, it really isn't bad when it's fun. Of course, it doesn't hurt, okay, when you have Jason Kidd, the coach. Now, am I starting to sound like Dick Schaap, who can go out there and take certain things here and have fun with them, but still talk about a story, right? But, this Kyrie Irving thing in Dallas isn't too bad. He wanted to be paid and he wanted to be appreciated. And guess what? In Dallas, they may have shot JR, but you know what they did? They shot JR with they shot Kyrie Irving, okay, with a fresh life and a fresh break. And I'm happy for the guy. I really, really am. What you're going to find out is the fact that he got the Mavericks to the playoffs this far is good enough. It makes you wonder about the upside of this franchise. And by the way, you ever heard of Jason Kidd? Okay. He's looking to join elite territory as one of the players that has won a national NBA championship as a player and a coach. I wouldn't put nothing past him. So, yes, there's no question, Leo, you're right. Okay. Series don't start till the road game team wins to win. But this has been a great season for both of these franchises. I am impressed with what they're doing in Dallas with the Boston Celtics. Yes, the Bill Walton tribute's all well and good. And he was a part of one of those 17 championships, even though he was a 6 man off the bench. But you need all players, right? But to me, this is a series which is an uplifting series for both franchises. And Brad Stevens has done an excellent job in the front office. And, even though they got past the Ime Udoka, by the way, it didn't take him long to land a job in Houston anyway, to Joe Bonzula, there are a lot of good storylines for both. There really, really are. And I think this is the type of series that, even though the NBA is probably going to make a killing on their next TV deal with every streaming and major thing on the package, I still believe that what Leo said, that the fact that the play is poor, that they can do whatever the heck they want and all the physical, that's fine. But this is a good series that tells you have a young coach, okay, and then you have a legend, and then you have a lot of good players. I would hope and pray that when you have a Boston market as well as a Dallas market, you should get some good numbers if it's a very good series. I really do. So I'm happy all the way around. I never picked a winner in this series. I just wanted to go 6-7, and I think that would help the NBA out considerably.
All right, guys. All right, our next segment we're going to get into, we'll talk just briefly about the NHL finals here. The Panthers versus the Edmonton Oilers. Connor McDavid is finally into the Stanley Cup here. This segment is brought to you by the original hometown pizza, Moon Township, 412-264-4444, University Boulevard, Moon Township, out by the Pittsburgh International Airport. Stop by and eat in, takeout, or delivery in the Moon area. Tell them that Ralph Williams sent you, and you will get a discount on your order. The original hometown pizza. All right, guys. NHL Finals: Panthers versus Edmonton. Guys, who you taking in this one? Start with you, Robert.
I don't really follow hockey that much, but I don't know. I'll take the Oilers. I don't know because.
Well,
Yeah,
I always take
I
the,
don't know.
I always take the Florida Panthers because they've been in it
Or
many
Tampa
times,
Bay,
and
right?
they're
Yeah.
always, they always are a
Right.
scrappy team that just
Yeah.
manages to get in there somehow. That's
Yeah.
my thoughts. Leo Haggerty.
You know what? And Scott, I'm going to defer to you on this because
Okay.
you've kind of seen this, but it's kind of funny when you look at it because all of a sudden all this jabber is coming out of South Florida about, oh, the Panthers have played the last 4 years in June and this and that and the other thing. And I just kind of said, hey, guys, you've been the bridesmaid. It's time to be the bride. And I said, you're not the best team in Florida simply because the Stanley Cup has rested 3 times up in Tampa. But I'm going to tell you what, I really like what Florida's doing right now. They are playing physical, and Bobrovsky is playing out of his mind. And I really think that the problem they're going to run into is people want a Canadian team to win the Stanley Cup. The last time they even had somebody in the finals was 2021 when the Canadians got in by default because you had the Canadian League and they had to get in.
Right.
You got to go all the way back to the Vancouver Canucks in 2011 before a Canadian team even played for the Stanley Cup.
Right.
So, yeah, I really think Florida's got a shot. But, anytime you put number 97 on the ice with that team they got up at Edmonton, man, oh, man, that's it. You're going to have to score goals to beat Edmonton.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm picking Florida in 7.
All right, Scott.
Leo, can I ask you a question? What the hell is wrong with you for all the right reasons? All right, let me give you the breakdown here, everybody. Okay. What the hell is wrong with you? Cheers, Leo, until I see you again. Here's the deal. I'm going to take your point and even go a little bit further. Okay. The last time a Canadian team won the Stanley Cup was in 1993, but it gets better than that. The last time an American team won in the Canadian Football League was the Baltimore Stallions in 1995. So here's an interesting stat for the ages, okay? You've got 2 exceptional general managers in Ken Holland, who, by the way, used to be the Red Wings GM and won 4 of them, okay? And yes, we all know that Tampa Bay owns Florida because they have Stanley Cup wins, okay? Not bridesmaid appearances. So, but the biggest problem the Florida Panthers are going to have is, let's just say hypothetically they do win this thing, you're going to have to retain these players and how quickly the fortunes can go ahead and fall. Let me take you back. See, Robert, I'm going to give you a hockey lesson on this thing. And when I bring you on my show, I guarantee you'll be a whole lot smarter. And if you don't choose hockey, it don't matter. I'll find other stuff. But
I got you.
Yeah, here's the deal, though. So you've got Holland. If the Oilers win, he retires. Bill Zito, if the Florida Panthers win, he's got some serious work to do with the calculator to make sure that he can keep as many of these players as he can without strapping them. Now, when you talk about the Red Wings dynasty, you know what slowed down the Red Wings dynasty? The salary cap.
Yep.
Mike Gillis could buy anybody he wanted, and they were winning. All you had was Scotty Bowman. You ever heard of him? He's really a good coach, okay? And Mike Babcock managed to win 1. So when you put the whole pieces in perspective, I believe the Panthers will win in 7. Okay, I really do. But would it bother me if the Oilers won? No, it wouldn't. because after all, one of two things is going to happen. Connor McDavid is going to win his first championship, or Alexander Barkov, they call him Barkov County down here in South Florida, and Matthew Tkachuk are going to win their first. So you're going to have a first either way. It just depends on where you end up going with this whole thing. So Bobrovsky, you know what? They signed him as a free agent a few years ago, and it finally went out there, and he's playing his postseason capabilities. So it's going to be a great series. Again, another one that I hope 7. But a little, like I said, the biggest thing that Leo said is, you're back in there in 91 because they had a Canadian series way up there during COVID. How much of those really records count for anything? What about the Lakers' last championship, right? You really call that a real championship? Or should it be 16 plus an asterisk next to 17? It won't matter because the Boston Celtics will get the best of you anyhow. But my point is what you guys say. It's due for a Canadian team to win. Now, will Florida be able to go ahead and finally get over the top? Well, those are storylines that'll play out over the next week or two. So, but think about it, the Baltimore Stallions. And by the way, can I give a hometown plug? Okay, the Michigan Panthers are playing the Birmingham Stallions. So, and even though you're on mute, I can do some lip reading. Okay. We'll just call this a stallion type of broadcast that we're running fast. Not as fast as I took this big truck. I said, Ralph, but don't tell the owners company that.
Oh, yeah, it's going to be the XFL division and the USFL division this weekend or next weekend. I believe they're doing their playoff, and then they're going to have a championship game. Birmingham's looking pretty decent, but they can be beat. Michigan's got a really good defense. Took them down to the wire. Birmingham really had to pull it out at the end there in the UFL. We'll see where that goes. Okay, next, guys, our next segment is brought to you in part by P6 Auto Detailing, 412-965-6278. It is P6 Auto Detailing, New Kensington. Do you drive a dirty car? Why? Get out there. Some of the best detailing in the area here and probably around Western Pennsylvania. P6 Auto Detailing, 412-965-6278. Give them a call today, P6 Auto Detailing. All right, guys, we're going to talk about the boxing fight that's been rescheduled, Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul. Mike Tyson had a health scare this week or last week, and now they're rescheduled it to November 15th. Start with you, Scott. Your thoughts on this fight?
You know what? Many years ago, I saw Mike Tyson take on Evander Holyfield in Vegas, that 11-rounder, and that was great. Great fight all the way around. I thought, well, maybe I'll go out there and buy the pay-per-view for $50. And then he bites off Holyfield's ear. And you know what happened after that? My ex-wife bit off my ear. Well, verbally anyways, okay. But Mike Tyson is a draw at any age. He really is. And if this guy's in any kind of shape, now, am I going to buy it? No. My wife here she works at a bank. She's very good with bookkeeping. And don't worry, we pick our spots when we do things. I'm just happy that Mike Tyson is still involved with boxing in any way, shape, or form. Because right now, boxing needs all the help it can to get back on the sports map any way that it can. And it's just unfortunate. It really is that a sport that has been so good to me. Okay. I've talked to the Sugar Ray Leonards, the Chuck Wepners, okay, and Muhammad Ali's, okay. Boxing needs to make a comeback. And if this is what it takes to get it back on there, I'm all for it. But no, I'm not buying anything on pay-per-view. I'm a lot smarter than that. I'd rather invest into marketing with my book.
There you go. All right, Robert.
Well, it's going to be on Netflix, guys. And Netflix, if you got it, I mean, I've got it. They do a good job so far. Watching that Tom Brady roast was good. I got a feeling they're going to do a good job production-wise, setting this thing up. I just hate the fact they put it to November. But Tyson apparently had an ulcer issue. He's 57, 58. And he's fighting a guy 27, 28 years old. But I think Tyson will win this because of his skill and power. But, I mean, I could see it going the other way. But the last actual, air quote, boxer that Paul fought, he did lose. It was Fury's, was it Tommy Fury? and somewhat of a novice. I mean, it could go the other way. It's really interesting, though. I just hate the fact that I'm still bummed that it's in November, but I'm not too down and out, because when you're at that age and you have a health scare like that, would they had to stop the airplane or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know how Mike Tyson's a tough guy. He probably downplayed it. It's probably a lot worse than what he was. I'm just glad they're going to be fighting, and I'm curious to see how it goes, because it could go the other way, you know.
Well, let me ask.
It will bring a lot of interest to the sport. That and Tyson Fury, that rematch with Fury, and I forgot the guy he fought last month. I'll probably end up ordering that one, guys.
Well, let me ask you guys a question, okay? Once upon a time, George Foreman beat Tommy Morris, right?
Yes, Tommy Morrison. I was just going to bring that up.
Yeah, so here's the deal. You got an old geezer who's probably getting AARP, okay, versus a young guy who hasn't even hit his 30s, you know? So I think, if anything else, you know, and I have to admit that Don King's corporate office, only in America, is down the street from me, by the way, in Deerfield Beach off I-95 and Hillsborough Road. Oh, why am I bringing it up? Because we are talking BOX.
I was just going to talk about Foreman and Morrison, Scott.
Well, sorry, Ralph. I couldn't help it.
Don't worry about it, man.
You can always you can always go ahead and feed off of me, because I'm fresh off the airline. Okay.
That's it. Well, hey, take a look at Tommy Morrison. Here was a guy who, you know, had all the cards in his favor, and then he ended up getting himself into some criminal trouble, and he ended up in jail. And then the day that he's getting out of jail, excuse me, he's standing in line, and someone said, "You're nothing but a punk," and he turned around and punched him in the head, and he ended up back in jail. And ever since then, his career had just slipped, and then he had AIDS, and then everything else. So, you know, and then passed. So it's sad about Tommy Morrison. Leo, your thoughts on this fight?
Well, I'll tell you what. Paul better hope when Tyson hits him that he's not on the ropes. Because if he falls back into the ropes and gets basically a ragdoll punching bag, he could get seriously hurt. I don't know what he's thinking about fighting a guy who, with one punch, can knock you into next week.
That's it.
That's just phenomenal. I mean, think about it. How long did Leon Spinks last? 18 seconds? You know, bingo, bango, bongo, fall down. And again, you can't train for that. You can't train for somebody hitting you what Mike Tyson's going to hit you like. And believe me, it's going to be one of those like in Rocky, you know, hey, go down, stay down, don't get up. Because if he gets stuck on those ropes and he becomes a punching bag, that referee can't get in fast enough.
Oh, yeah, Rocky Balboa with Antonio Tarver, man. He taught him a lesson in that movie.
I love the Rocky.
So there you go. Oh, yeah.
Me too.
How about Jake Paul's going to get taught a lesson, I think, in this fight here. He's going to be sorry he ever scheduled it. I'm taking Mike Tyson to knock his block off. I hope that happens.
I hope I can get Peter out to that fight to cover it, because, you know, he's the Rolex reporter.
Oh, you know it, man. You know it. All right, guys. NFL news mini camps have started up. Training camp the end of July. We'll go around the horn here in your areas as to your teams in the NFL. And this segment is brought to you in part by draft412/draftnation.com. Get on their website today. $9 a month. They have an e-magazine that they will send into your inbox. They cover every single draft: football, NBA, and NHL, Major League Baseball. I just had JT Toth on my show 2 weeks ago, and he talked to us about the NHL draft and the Major League Baseball draft coming up this summer and what to expect and everything else. Thorough reporting. $9 a month. Get it in your inbox. The draft 412/draftnation.com. All right, guys, let's get started. NFL. We'll start with you, Leo. Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Well, they're finishing up the OTAs on Tuesday, and the big talk down here is that Kristen Wirfs is going to show up for minicamp. Well, offensive tackles don't miss things that they can get fined over. So, yeah, he was coming. Now, whether he participates, that's a whole other animal. But everything's kind of running smooth. They're kind of throwing Dave Canales, the former offensive coordinator, who's now the head coach up at Carolina, under the bus. They're saying he was a, very vanilla offense. Well, you got Lyman Cohen in here, and he's a, Sean McVay disciple, and they do more shifting and moving before the snap than the Rockettes do at Christmas time. So, it's all window dressing. It reminds me of when Peyton Manning was playing. He would just sit there and keep moving and calling audibles and moving until that clock down to 5 seconds. He had the last move. He'd shout Omaha. They'd snap the ball. That's what you're going to see now. Not just with the Buccaneers, but you're also going to see it with Atlanta. They have another Sean that they disciple, not just in their head coach, but their offensive coordinator, Robinson. And one last thing. When's the last time you saw all 4 teams in a division have new offensive coordinators?
Yes. Yeah.
Here's the funny thing. The longest tenured offensive coordinator in the NFL, 32 teams, 2021. You don't go back any further.
Wow. Yep.
Is changing.
Yeah, absolutely. The Steelers interviewed Robinson for the offensive coordinator's position. We chose Arthur Smith, former Atlanta head coach and offensive coordinator in Tennessee. Robert's familiar with Arthur Smith. And speaking of the Titans, Robert, you're up next. How's Mason Rudolph doing and everything else there?
Nothing really has come out about him. This week per se, that came out of the Titans camp is Denard Wilson, the defensive coordinator, former defensive back coach out of the Ravens, AFC North there. We're kind of curious about what type of defense he's going to play. What I like that's came out of their camp is they're playing press man. They've got the defensive backs to do that, which is something I haven't said about this team probably in 20. I mean, between defensive back group and air quotes and court and receiving group, maybe the best they've had in 20 years. You know, having Jarius Sneed there playing, Aduzue, I'm destroying his name, but it's a former Bengal, former Cowboy there. That at the other one, and they're playing press man, which is something I like. Tennessee had a habit of playing way too much zone, and I play a lot of daily fantasy, and in the past they would be the team, that I would take the leading receiver against. I would take Mike Evans, Lee, against the Titans the year before last. But so that's kind of like the news out of camp right now. Levis, he did have a bad day. What was it, like Wednesday, but it recovered Thursday, something like that. We don't really know the full scale until they get into the real training camps. We're just trying to pick little tea leaves here and there. But that's it in a nutshell. I mean, we're all thirsty for football. I wish it was here now, but we gotta survive July, guys.
Oh yeah. All right, Scott Morganroth, Miami, Jacksonville. Go ahead.
Well, don't forget Detroit too. I'm on the media distribution list. First of all, okay. I think after listening to you guys talk about OTAs, I'm going to make a declaration on this show. I think I'm going to go back and start watching soap operas because that's what I'm going to do. Now, as if that wasn't good enough, I do like watching NCIS with my wife. That's a couples activity. But here's the deal. Okay. Number one, I've already made my declaration. I'm going to go back to watching soap operas. I think they had that thing called the soap opera channel. And why am I bringing the soap opera thing in? Because number one, as the salaries increase for the wide receivers, as the salaries increase for the quarterbacks, right? Okay. Now, with all due respect to the Lions, they're retaining their core players. Okay. So let's see who can play hopscotch above each other on the wide receivers and the quarterbacks. As for the Miami Dolphins, Tua Tagovailoa, right? Here's an interesting guy. Okay. Well, we're going to extend a guy that's only played 1 year, 17 bowl games. And prior to that, he was like Humpty Dumpty, Every time he went on the wall, he took a big fall and got his head cracked, So then you have that. And then the Lions, of course, they're building their foundation. I think Mike McDaniel's even going to go to a motivation where all his meetings with his coaches are going to go out there and say, we're going to start these meetings 24 minutes after the hour or 24 minutes on the hour because they haven't won a playoff game in 24 years. Okay, my goodness. Let's talk about psychology, even though some of these guys were probably not even born when they won one anyway. So what do you have here? The Jacksonville Jaguars, not sure what we have up there yet. So, I mean, I read a lot of the stuff. Trevor Lawrence, is their foundational quarterback due for a contract extension. So why am I taking this soap opera approach? We're talking contracts. We're talking about the time of the year, like you guys say. I don't get a lot of sleep. I do suffer from sleep apnea, but nobody will go ahead and deal with sleep issues when it comes to this time of the year. Kudos to the United Football League. At least you've made it interesting on Saturday for a little. And besides, I'm covering baseball, and we're working on my next part of my book. So really, what do I think of OTAs? The same thing I think of soap operas. They bore me.
All right, our OTAs.
Although I do have to make a confession, back in 1986 and 85, when I was at University of South Florida, I scheduled my classes around General Hospital so I could see Luke and Laura.
All right, guys. Steeler OTAs. We have Cam Hayward back in action here. He was holding out a little bit. He's looking for a new contract. Still has one more year on his. Also, we have Justin Fields and the Russell Wilson saga going on. Like you say, Scott, the soap opera. The other soap opera is who are we going to throw to? We don't have a real star wide receiver other than Pickens. And then also, too, is Omar Khan going to be the con man, make some kind of move coming up before training camp or after? Also, don't forget we have our tight ends, so we can throw to. Arthur Smith likes to do that in his offense. And our plan is to run the football. And my biggest concern, other than Cam Hayward coming back, is our defensive line. Okunjobi's 1 year older. We have a bunch of backup guys who come in and fill in every now and again. We lost a couple decent guys who were good backups. So we're going to find out what happens this year with the defensive line. The linebacking crew looks really good. Peyton Wilson. But again, like Scott said, and like everyone else has said, it's only 8 OTAs and it's only mini camp. Training camp comes up. That's when we really see what happens here. And then also when we get into the regular season, we're going to find out. Steelers have a tough schedule. We'll see where they go this year.
See, Ralph,
Scott?
you know what? I got to tell you, man, there's really hope for you in this broadcasting business anyway, because he brought in soap operas to write OTAs. And you know what, Ralph? I love you. You're a brother to me.
Thank you. No, I disagree with you, Scott. It's the same thing because right now we got Russell Wilson running all over town. He's going to Kennywood, our amusement park. He's going to the zoo. He's running all over the place, shaking hands with everybody. He was at the Kenny Chesney concert last Saturday, handing out jerseys and stuff to Zach Brown. So, that it is a soap opera. And Russell Wilson, Justin Fields going at each other for the quarterback race, and they're going to move Justin Fields to a wide receiver. They're going to move him to clean the toilets. They're going to have him doing all this other stuff. So what I'm saying is, it is a soap opera. You're exactly right, Scott. I agree with you on that.
See, here's the thing that we have to understand now that we have this soap opera thing. All of these teams just want to make sure, okay, that when they play next year, that they stay away from one soap opera. You know what that is? The Edge of Night.
Yep, that's it. You're right. All right, guys, let's move on to our key topic today, gambling in sports. As you know, we had my bum today was Marcano, who formerly played for the Pirates and went to the San Diego Padres now, and so on and so forth. So
Hey, guys.
Can you hear me, guys?
We're going to have a new show called the Show, starring Scott, Robert, and Leo.
Well, you know what? Until Ralph unfreezes, let's talk a little bit about this.
Absolutely.
You know what? Did this guy bet on baseball? Is that what the big problem is out there with Mercado? I'm not familiar with it.
Yeah. I thought you was talking about Ohtani. He got cleared this week. For his interpreters pled guilty, and he's been cleared by Major League Baseball. I'm still questionable whether or not he knew anything about it. I'm happy for Dodger fans. I'm happy for Major League Baseball.
Right.
But
Robert,
gambling's a big deal nowadays.
Robert, I agree with you. How can a guy not know that millions of dollars are being taken?
Okay, guys, I'm back. Sorry.
That's all right, Ralph. We're keeping it rolling.
I've had to do some improvising here. I'm having issues with my tablet this morning. I don't know what's going on here, but here we are. But anyway, let's talk about gambling in sports here real quick. And our sponsor for this segment is Fulton Travel Mobility. call 1-877-GOT-FOOLED, 1-877-GOT-FOOLED. You in a wheelchair as I am? Do you go to events and can't get around because you don't have a folding travel or a folding power wheelchair? Well, get one today, foldandtravelmobility.com. The expert.
Oh, I think he froze up again.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you know what? Let me put it this way.
So
If you continue,
foldandtravelmobility.com. All right, guys, let's talk about gambling here for a minute in sports. We'll start with your thoughts on some of these people who gamble in sports.
Well, you know what? I don't have a
Dead, Leo.
problem if they're not gambling on their own sport. Again, if a guy goes to the racetrack, you know, like Tom Brady goes out and places a bet on a horse, that's gambling. But you know, there's a big sign, and Scott and Robert, you know as well as I do. When you walk into a locker room, there's a big sign: "Do not gamble. Do not."
Yes.
That's right there. But you know what? If I'm a football player and I'm going to gamble on the final March Madness, I don't have a problem with that.
right,
The problem I have is if you gamble on a sport that you play in,
right,
because now it could affect.
right. Yeah, you're right. Here's the thing that's going to happen, though, if the baseball thing continues to happen. You know what leagues are going to benefit by all this? You ever heard of the Korean Baseball League? Okay.
Yep.
You ever heard of they can play in Japan? They can play in Mexico. They can play anywhere they want. But guess what? They're not being paid as much. They can't lose as much, right? Or you guys might find a way anyway. But it's unfortunate. It really is. You're right, Leo. You can't gamble on the same sport that you're participating in, because then all of a sudden, the word fixed comes into play and all that other business. So I agree. If you're gambling on another sport that you don't participate in, let's face it, gambling is actually being made available to everybody. Here I am driving up I-75 the other day, okay, on this project I was working on, and I'm seeing the Hollywood Casino up I-75 in Toledo, Ohio. And I cannot believe I'm seeing the Hollywood Casino in all places, Toledo, Ohio. Really? So it's everywhere. It's everywhere.
There you go.
What's that?
Ralph, I gotta tell you, you really screwed up on this one. The sponsor of this segment should be DraftKings.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, so
there is gambling everywhere.
It's available
So
everywhere.
good, Scott.
Back in the time when you had the Indian casinos, until everybody started to get a hang of this gambling, it wasn't going away. And all of a sudden, we have a team in Las Vegas, right, called the Raiders. You know, and in Detroit, you have 3 or 4 casinos out there. One of the Lions are playing, and we once upon a time just held a Super Bowl in Las Vegas. Get used to it. Everybody's doing it. And if you do bet in your own sport, there's other leagues to play, and they're not Major League Baseball. And I'll cap it off with this. It's a shame that Trevor Bauer was blackballed, because as I understand from my sources, that those women made up those stories, and now nobody's willing, this wasn't innocent until proven guilty. And this poor guy can't get back in MLB, even though he wanted to go out there and play for the minimum. But I hope Trevor keeps working his way back. But you know what? In order to stay in baseball shape, he was in Japan last year and Mexico.
You know what? Let me throw this out at you. What was worse? That Trevor Bauer got blackballed, or what happened to the Duke lacrosse team?
Oh, you know what? That's a coin flip. Because you know what, Lego? That's true. And I've had this on numerous shows before, and I'll reiterate it on it again, okay? And I agree. That's a coin toss. What do you think, Rob?
Yeah, that it really is. Probably the Duke lacrosse, because the woman made the whole thing up.
Yeah.
Bowers had a reputation for being a hothead.
Right.
Just for at least of his problems in the past. But as far as gambling, guys, I was in Florida early May, and I'm a big FanDuel guy. I was just checking what my wager paid that I'm placed in Tennessee for. It was something to do with the Knicks. I had a Brunson over and under. I could not check that in Florida, so you can't sports bet. According to FanDuel, I could not go on my FanDuel site in Florida. I think sports gambling per se is legal in like 10, 12 states here. So this thing is still as much as we've talked about gambling for 40, 50 years, or you read about gambling 40, 50, 60 years, particularly football and all that, whatnot, it's still in its infant stage of being accepted to the mainstream and still getting divvied out. And I'm like you guys, I don't want my players that play in those games betting on their own sport or own league per se. They can bet on their own sport. We don't want anything to look like the game is fixed. And I think a lot of this stuff will work itself out. Look at the play. Calvin Ridley's with the Titans. He was suspended for a year for gambling. With these phones, these players are starting to learn the hard way that this stuff can be traced. It can be traced. So it's growing. It's like the NIL in college, and it's growing pains.
Yeah, well, and let's not forget Mr. Gambler himself, Pete Rose.
Yeah.
Okay, once upon a time, can't get in the Hall of Fame because this guy couldn't tell the truth if he wanted 9 million times over. All he had to do was play it straight with Bart Giamatti, who died shortly thereafter, and every other commissioner that's followed him. I'm gonna let you back in. When are you going to tell us the truth, Mr. Rose? Never. And what'll end up happening, he'll get in the Hall of Fame when he's dead, or maybe not. Never know. But but again, Rob, going back to your point, you're right. These bets are being traced by phones, and that's something that we had never had to deal with in the past. And you know what? I've had people out there in the media ask me, "Well, why don't you start a gambling show?" And my simple explanation is this: I'm an old school journalist. That I will never start a gambling show. All I'm here is to distribute information. Do with it whatever you want to do it. Because I'm a journalist by trade, and that's what it is. I don't care about gambling. People lose money. They lose their whole house, and they lose their whole life. You want to take information? I'm not responsible if you lose. I just make sure you have the information. Do what you want with it.
Right, exactly. You got these shows out there, and Leo and I know a guy that does a handicapper show, and you have some of those out there. But like you guys are talking about, phones is what's really made it. It's so easy to gamble now. It's just amazing how easy it is to gamble, and it's becoming an addiction. Pennsylvania here, I can tell you some story. I'm not going to do it today, but I could tell you some stories about our local casino. We just some people just got arrested for stealing, rigging card games, rigging roulette wheels and stuff like that. And it's become a serious problem. We had about 5-6 years ago, we had a suicide. Someone jumped off the top of the parking garage because they lost $35,000 at a blackjack table. So it's a real addictive problem. And fortunately for me, I play once in a blue moon. Now you're allowed to have slot machines in the convenience stores. I have about 4 of them up here where I live, so I can go into there and play anytime I want. And I might spend maybe about $20 and win 50 and leave. I'm one of them kind of people. If someone's giving me money, I'm leaving. I'm taking it and I'm walking right out the door. So I've done that many times, and I call myself a conservative gambler. I watch what I spend, and I'm careful when I leave. I take their money. Hey, if you're giving it to me, why not take it and leave instead of putting it back in and giving it back to them?
Good point, because I was up in Niagara Falls with my wife. We went on this trip there, and I went to one of those casinos. I haven't played these slot machines in a while. I think I invested like $30, and then I walked away with 90. So I told my wife, by the way, everything that I've earned, I think I made $90. I don't remember. But once I got that in my hands, I said, "Here, Candy, you know what? Put it in your pocket. I don't like to leave losers." And the lady said, "You're welcome to play more." I said, "Yeah, you're welcome to take more of my money. But you know what? I got the money out of here, and the boss is keeping it, and it was a pleasure. And I'll go back to Niagara Falls more often."
All right, let's close up the show here. Robert, we'll start with you since you're our guest. Tell everybody about yourself and your podcast and what's going on.
Yeah. It's like I said, I'm out of Nashville, but I want to cover national sports here. Sports Scope, 7 p.m., 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central. You can find it on YouTube, Facebook. I try to get it on the X out, but there's some problems there with StreamYard. And you can get it anywhere your podcast. I download it that night, whether it's Apple, whether it is Spotify, within an hour of the program. You should be able to get it there. Listen to it's an hour show. Goes by pretty quick. 4 segments there. And love to have guests. Love to have all of you back on.
All right.
Good company here. I really appreciate you having me on the program, Ralph.
You're welcome, Robert, anytime. And we'll have a special guest next week as well. Leo Haggerty, go ahead with your information.
Yeah, go to Facebook, take a look at us. We're also on YouTube, Amped Up Sports. And you know what, Robert? Anytime you need a guest, Ralph's got my number. Just give me a call.
Got it.
Love to get on in Nashville. I tell you what, one last thing. Calvin Ridley, when they got him for gambling, it was an 8-team parlay. That's like giving money to the bookie.
Hey, I got one for you. I got one for you real quick. How about Art Schleister? How about him?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That was tough. He had all the talent in the world, and look at what he did. So, Scott, go ahead with your closing.
Well, yeah, Alex Karras, but he only was off 1 year, and then he ended up making out well. And Robert, there's only 2 words to really describe you, pal. Class act. Okay, because that's what you are, is a class act.
Appreciate it, guys. Appreciate it.
So, in terms of Robert just had to deal with a wild on the road again, no travel hangover. But how to get a hold of me? Well, that's one way to get to know me really good. Less than something on the microphone, tuning into the enduring wisdom of visionary leaders. Can be purchased on Amazon, Kindle, and Barnes & Noble. Website, www.southfloridatribune.com. Ralph does appear on Fire Up with Candy Ebling as well, so we appreciate what he does.
Thank you.
You're welcome. As far as our YouTube channel, Robert, check it out. If you want to sub, I'll sub back. Called South Florida Tribune as well. And then I'll definitely be in contact here real soon to bring you on. So between the book and on Twitter at Tribune South. You know, Ralph, I love coming on your show. You bring on great people. And this is a show that I'm glad to be on, despite the fact that in Cuba, they say fresh off the, fresh off the boat. I'm fresh off the. Okay, so there you go. And we're still having a blast.
Yes, we are. All right, guys. Thank you. Ralph Williams, RW Media on YouTube. And you also please subscribe. I'm on Facebook, YouTube. I'm also on LinkedIn. I'm on the Twitter X, and I'm on Tumblr. And you can also, don't forget to catch Specialty Sports Corner every Tuesday, 4 to 6 p.m. with me, Ralph Williams, Smoke, and Jim Frazier. For Leo Haggerty, Robert Butler, and Scott Morganroth, I'm Ralph Williams. Have yourself a great weekend and be safe. We'll see you next week. Thank you.
Sure, guys.
See you guys.
Hey, Robert.